person. Okay. So, thank you so much. Well, it's her exhibition, it's her day. That's Olivia Fraser. So here we are at her exhibition. Look at this. So these are her paintings here at the British Council. Looks to me a butterfly. A lotus flower. I don't know what's that. So well, the name is Metamorphosis. So these are metamorphoses, all these 4 drawings. Stone pigments, Arabic gum and gold leaf on handmade sangarnir paper, and there are a set of 5 panels. So these are a set of 5 panels here. This is Olivia Fraser, The Journey Within. Look at this. So here at BCL we have a high tea before we go in to find out about the journey within. These are pomegranates. Well, this is titled Kundalini, also done in 2022 by Olivia Fraser. There she is. So now we're getting ready for a conversation celebrating a cross-cultural artistic dialogue between worlds within practice by the artist herself. That's the author. The artist in person, Olivia Fraser. She has taken up a degree from the Wimbledon College of Arts in London. And can you read this for me?
From here?
Yeah.
Olivia Fraser is a Delhi-based artist known for painting incorporating intricate patterns, ancient iconography, and spiritual and philosophical themes. Deep of Indian miniature painting. Fraser combines traditional mediums and techniques with forms and ideas inspired by modern Western art, including the archetypical shapes, colors, and rhythms in the works of Kazimir Malevich and the suprematists.
So this is the brochure that we were given. See if you can read.
Country Director for India, to share a few words of welcome on behalf of the British Council.
Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to see you all here with us this evening. This is the British Council's Culture Friday platform, an opportunity for us to get together and to discuss, debate and build new knowledge and friendships together. It's wonderful to see so many familiar faces. Some of you I know were here with us last Friday, where we had an incredible evening with Ghulam Mohammed Sheikh, Mark Cazalet and Indrapramit Roy, and their exhibition is on at Triveni, so do go and see it if you have a chance. And so this evening I'm even more delighted to see so many of you come back for our second Culture Friday this month, a special conversation between our 2 artists this evening, Between Worlds Within Practice. It's a title that captures not only the spirit of tonight's discussion, but also the lived realities of so many contemporary artistic journeys. This conversation comes at a particularly meaningful moment, actually quite a sad moment, as we mark the final days of Olivia Fraser's exhibition, A Journey Within. Many of you will have spent time with the work over the last few weeks, encountering its quiet intensity, its layers of memory, and its deeply reflective nature. I know our team here at the British Council is going to be incredibly sad to see it pack up and go this weekend. It's been a real privilege to have your work here, Olivia. Thank you so much. And thank you so much to our partners at Nature Walk for really making this happen for us all. We're especially pleased to be joined tonight by Olivia Fraser and Bharti Kher, 2 remarkable artists whose practices, while distinct in form and language, speak powerfully to what it means to live and create across cultures. Both have strong, sustained connections to India and the UK, and their work really reflects the richness, the complexity, and sometimes the dissonance of inhabiting more than one world at once. And this reminds me very much of my own personal journey between India and the UK, and a story that I tell often to really exemplify and kind of highlight that story. My children were both born here in Delhi, and my son, when he was asked, he was quite small, when he was asked where he was from, he said, England. And the person asking him said, which city are you from? And he said, Delhi. And I think that really sort of demonstrates the kind of complexity of being a third culture kid, the complexity of growing up one place and being from somewhere else and having a passport that says something else and really trying to figure out where you're really from. But of course, we're all from everywhere. So the work, I think, that Olivia has brought to us really helps exemplify that, and the conversation this evening, I think, will bring that to life even more. So it's going to be a really exciting evening, a way that we will be able to think about the UK and India, what it means to all of us, think about what it means to move from the personal to the universal, and address questions of identity, of belonging, of memory, and of place. These aren't abstract ideas, as we've heard. They're lived experience. They feel especially relevant in a world where so many of us are navigating all of these different complexities. The arts, of course, plays a vital role in helping us understand all of this and kind of shape our own understanding and our own interactions with people and with place. And the British Council is really proud to be part of this conversation and really trying to help build that understanding together. So thank you again so much to Olivia and to Bharti. Thank you for being with us here this evening. I'm going to hand over to my colleague. I'm going to hand back to Yuri first, but I'd also like to thank Hema Singrans, who'll be moderating.
That's the artist, Olivia Fraser.
Thank you. So I first came to India in 1989, clasping a newly published book called The Passionate Quest. It was a glossy coffee table book written by Mildred Archer and Toby Falk about the art and adventures in India in the early 19th century of my Scottish kinsmen, James and William Fraser. James Bailey Fraser was a landscape artist, and during the early years of the 19th century, he painted a wonderful and hugely popular series of engravings and lithographs of the Himalayas and cityscapes of Calcutta. And I began painting the monuments of Delhi. This one's Safdarjung's tomb, and I used watercolour, which was then a new medium for me, which seemed to suit my then very itinerant life and the climate. I enjoyed the game of how quickly pools of colour would dry and bleed into each other in the heat. James stayed with his brother William in Delhi, who was the representative of the East India Company, and perhaps the most interesting aspect I find of these kinsmen was the extraordinary collection of watercolours which James asked William to commission from Delhi artists, like this painting called Six Recruits. And the man dressed in yellow on the left is wearing the uniform for the regiment called Skinner's Horse, set up by Fraser and his best friend, Colonel James Skinner. These paintings formed what has become the famous Fraser album, one of the greatest masterpieces of a hybrid form of late Mughal art, which is sometimes called company school painting, portraying the different types of people, their jobs, crafts, castes, against a stark white background. And this form of painting, where Indian artists created something that mixed techniques and ideas from East and West, was the starting point for all my work. And so I set about painting people I met on my travels, inspired by the depictions in the Fraser album. This is a group I encountered on the highway in Haryana, actually very close to where James Skinner had his house. And in these early works, I was a travel painter, painting India very much as an outsider looking in. Then I saw the miniature paintings in the National Museum here in Delhi, and I was thrilled by the gem-like colours, the detailed brushwork, the patterning and the burnished surfaces, and I started developing my own miniature street scenes in watercolour. But it was in 2004, and returning to live in India with my family in tow, that I became determined to master the traditional techniques. So I apprenticed myself to a miniature painting gurukul, initially in Jaipur. And having come from a world where painting materials came in tubes and tins, it was a revelation to source the raw materials in Jaipur, whether it was a sap from a particular tree outside the studio door, an oil lamp soot to make kajal, excellent for fine line work, or chalk, white currier from the surrounding hills, or even semi-precious stones like malachite or lapis. Everything was local and from the landscape, it felt. I learnt how to grind and mix pigments to their correct consistency, how to make the handmade paper, or the muslin, and bind it. And what I enjoyed most was the single-head brushes, which have a natural spring and curve at the tip, which together with the almost meditational concentration required for this genre, aspect underpinning this painting tradition, the sacred geometry, the structure, colour and symbolism, and the fact that, like Byzantine icons, these artworks were objects of worship and devotion. Sitting on the floor with the other studio craftsmen, all playing their part in the vast Pichwai, I learnt through a process of osmosis. I became obsessed by the rigour of the traditional Indian painting process, particularly this Natuvara-inspired sacred art form. It involved a different way of seeing. And when I asked how to paint a banana leaf, I was told there was only one way. You didn't go outside and sketched it. You had to look within. It was an internal form of perception. And so began my journey within. Traditional Indian miniature painting is dominated by images of human interaction, whether of gods and kings, goddesses, and nature and landscape are often relegated to the background. But I became interested in making this background the subject matter of my work, exploring the traditional vocabulary of landscape, trees, flowers, sky, water, etc., and investigating their ability to communicate a sort of sense of rasa or flavour so central to this tradition. Pichwai's miniature painting share the same techniques and have the same studio practice. So initially I continued painting on a small miniature scale, but after a few years I started doing bigger paintings like this one, which is called One Breath. I practice yoga in Delhi with a Nat disciple steeped in the tantric tradition where the lotus plays a key part in a personal practice fashion. Visualizations within yoga and particularly within meditation then started to influence the subject matter of my work. And this series of paintings explores the idea of breath, which is fundamental to hatha yoga and meditation and to the slow process of miniature painting. And by creating these lotuses on a monumental scale with separate panels, minimal colour and noise, I was interested in the feeling this might create that might echo the feeling I felt during their slow creation, a concentrated slowing down, a calm clarity when you watch or witness the breath as you inhale and the lotus opens and you exhale and the lotus shuts. This one's called 1,000 Petals, or the Sahasrara, and using imagery of the lotus in its full as well as fragmented petal form and influenced by op art's rhythmic patterning and optical illusions, I was thinking of endlessness, of infinity, of possibility, and hence the continuing flanking patterns and the iterating fractal patterns, the expansion or contraction of the movement where every repeated petal shifts in size or direction. There's a wonderful 3rd century Buddhist text which describes yoga as the painting of pictures by the mind using the brush of meditation. And I quote, "The actions of the mind, like a painter, paints images in the sphere of immateriality." And here I am, taking that idea into the physical realm of painting, grappling with depicting immateriality on paper, inspired by an ever-deepening engagement with the country I've now spent over half my life in. This one's called Kundalini, 1 and 2. Here again, by deconstructing the lotus, so linked to meditation, into petals, I was thinking of the spiralling Shiv-Shakti breath movement as it flows serpentine-like up and down the body during meditation. And the idea of the coolness within each inhalation and the heat within each exhalation is echoed in the colours of indigo and red. Movement and stillness are oppositional concepts, but both are fundamental to the practice of meditation and even to the practice of miniature painting itself, where you have to zone out into an almost meditative state to create the tiny, repetitive brushstrokes within the shading or the partage, ever aiming for lightness. This is also called Kundalini, both of these images. And as a counterpoint to my paintings concerned with movement and sensation, here I was also thinking about the word Kundalini, meaning she who is coiled. And I was influenced by ancient Naga tree shrines, often found in temple compounds in South India. These panels are more static and confrontational, timeless and iconographic. I'm always fascinated by the tension in miniature painting between the flat surface and the partage, the shading or the patterning. And here I was thinking of the patterning and the repetition within the body of the serpents, giving them the pulse and rhythm and energy inherent in the idea of the Kundalini. This is called Snakes and Ladders, which is a game invented in India probably around the 2nd century BC. As the narrator in Salman Rushdie's Midnight's Children says, all games have morals, and the game of Snakes and Ladders captures as no other activity can hope to do the eternal truth that for every ladder you hope to climb, a snake is waiting just around the corner, and for every snake a ladder will compensate. Implicit in the game is the unchanging two-ness of things, the duality of up against down. In this mosaic of panels, and inspired by Tantra, I wanted to transform that idea of duality into a oneness of things, that the oppositional concepts of upwards and downwards could create a whole, and in this case, one breath, with the inhalation visualized within meditation as the blue serpent uncoiling upwards, and the exhalation visualized as the red serpent coiling downwards. And reinforcing the idea of the yogic breath, I was also thinking about Bhuta Shuddhi, the idea of the purification of the 5 elements, with the 5 elements reduced to just an elemental pattern, providing a patchwork rhythmic landscape. And so here I've layered the 2 ideas to create a sort of tantric board game where movement and meditation can meld into one. Next one's called "Not travel on the path," said the Buddha, unless you become the path itself. And these were his last words to his disciples, were apparently walk on. I painted this during the pandemic when we all experienced lockdown in our homes. Walking, particularly walking outside, became a vital luxury as we all tried, as enabled by our respective governments, to walk off the mental trauma of being locked in. I've often used parts of the body, of my body, as an exploration of the physical and metaphysical. And so here, using an aesthetic ash-coloured pigment with overlapping iterated chakra imagery, gold leaf, and my feet as a template, I was aiming to reflect the idea of a combined inner and outer journey, the physical with the metaphysical. This is called All Is Leaf. I visited Chartres Cathedral a few years ago and was blown away by the stained glass window, which felt like portals for a sanctified perception. I also was thinking about how Jali screens provide a similar function in India, and how on the one-dimensional surface of paper, perhaps gold and indigo, both spiritually charged colours, could translate these windows or portals. Using repetitive leaf imagery and thinking of the fantastic tree of life, Jali and Ahmedabad, I was also thinking of William Blake's words: if the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. This is called darshan, and as an artist I'm fascinated by seeing, by the sense of perception. In India, an extra layer of meaning is given to this with the idea of darshan, what John Berger calls the reciprocal nature. How do I do that? I don't know how to get that. The reciprocal nature of vision is here literally translated to the physical attributes of eyes. The 16th century blind devotional poet wrote, "At the sight of Hari's eyes, at the sight of Hari's face, my eyes lose their way. They're love-struck bees who are mired in the mud beneath a charming lotus, powerless to fly." I love the idea of the blind poet writing about seeing the divine. I feel his words perfectly complement the inner perception of yogic vision that I'm interested in. This is called Pomegranate. I'm always interested in pattern and repetition. I feel this is a fundamental archetypal idea. We are all made of patterns: our DNA, our cells, our breath, our pulse, our behaviour. We get up in the morning, go to work, have our meals, go to bed, and then repeat. I often use the language of pattern, so innate in the Indian miniature tradition, and build my work from the micro to the macro. But in this instance, I was thinking of the repeated pomegranate itself as the pattern. I used the oppositional tantric colours of red and white, and thinking about sacred numbers in a confrontational Andy Warhol way. He said, the more you look at exactly the same thing, the more the meaning goes away, and the better and emptier you feel. Artists all over the world have been fascinated by how to depict sound in artworks. And in India, of course, the Ragamala tradition has been around for almost 400 years, with paintings visualizing a particular raga through unique color, mood, season, and time of day. And here I was interested in the idea of sound linked with color and space, and linking it to the yogic asana Brahmari. It's a wonderful extract from the 18th century yoga text called the Gheranda about Brahmari, where you shut out your senses. Slowly draw in air and perform it's written, slowly draw in air and perform Brahmari Kumbhaka. Exhale it very slowly, and then the sound of a bee will arise, On hearing the sound of a bee from within, leave the mind there. Samadhi will occur together with the bliss arising from the realization I am that. The sound of bees buzzing comes from the vibration of their wings in flight, so I painted this sequence of ever more densely packed bees and wings flying towards the central lotus to reflect a meditative, reverberating sound, an ever-increasing hum and buzz of the bee, and where the end result is perhaps a flower or a lotus, with wings and petals merging to become one. Which brings me to my final slide, metamorphosis. Pichwai wrote, "What we need more and more in this life is a sanctuary," which I think is particularly relevant to the moment. A sanctuary for contemplation, a sanctuary away from all the noise and the rage in the world. And here I was thinking about transformation, evolution, connection, and about how vitally important it is, our connection to the landscape and our understanding of how we are all interdependent. I've made a number of paintings with the bee and the lotus as active and passive counterpoints to each other. But in this instance, I wanted to remove that binary idea and show the lotus and the bee becoming one, with the size and shape of both reflecting the other. The many-winged bee morphs into a 1,000-petal lotus and back. We breathe, we meditate, we repeat. But most of all, we need to perhaps just be conscious of the wonder of it all. So in the making of these works, I'm interested in the detail, the shading, where something becomes nothing, where indigo becomes gold. That slow, almost invisible transition or transformation within the image is a physical reflection of the metaphysical, tantric, Advaita philosophy of unity, which I'm so fascinated by. In our ever-accelerating world, hell-bent on accentuating our differences, I'm interested in connection, and I feel this slow art form of miniature painting and my subject matter, probing a journey within, is a wonderful antidote, emphasising as it does the importance of slowing down, connecting, and being present in the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. It's always so good to hear from the artists themselves. I mean, we've seen some of the paintings on display here at the gallery, so thank you once again for such a comprehensive overview of your work and the practice. On that note, I'd like to invite Bharti Kher to